diversity. Thank you, Hillary. This event is about diversity and inclusion in product management. My name is Prachi Bivalkar. I am a co-director of programming at BPMA. I'm here joined with two of my other BPMA board members, Hillary, who's also a co-director of programming, and Sudhir, who is a director of diversity and inclusion at BPMA. Today's agenda is we're going to have a kickoff and intro about BPMA for those of you who are joining this presentation for the first time. Then after that, we're going to have our guest speaker do a presentation followed by Q&A, and then we'll wrap up the meeting. So this event's going to go on for about an hour, so we'll end around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Some guiding principles: we really encourage everyone to keep their cameras on. We also encourage networking. So in the Zoom chat, share your name, title, organization, let us know who you are. And also as we go, feel free to type in questions. Hillary will be monitoring all the questions, and at the end of the call, she's going to ask those questions to our guest speaker.
And hey, Patrick, should we be seeing the slides?
Yes, are you not seeing it?
I don't think I am. I don't know. It might just be me though. Oh no, looks like we gotta, maybe if you try stop sharing and then share again.
Okay, let me try that.
Looks good now.
Great. Okay. For those of you who are joining a BPMA event for the first time, BPMA is a professional organization in the greater Boston area. We are dedicated and committed to career development of product managers in the Boston area. We offer events like these, content on the BPMA website, mentorship and job board opportunities at the BPMA website, and also a Slack channel. Some of our upcoming events in the month of April are Mastering Product Job Interview and Developing Your Professional Network. So go to the BPMA website to find out more details about these events. Finally, we are thankful to our sponsors and partners. With that, I would like to welcome our speaker for today, Cyde. We really thank you for spending time with us today. Cyde is a Senior Director of Commercial Transformation at Sanofi. She has spent majority of her career in healthcare and life sciences, but most recently she's been with Sanofi in the Commercial Transformation Group. Today, she's going to share her journey in the diversity and inclusion space, and we're going to learn a few insights on how she went about in the American workforce. So welcome, Cyde, and thank you we're really excited to have you today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit about my journey in my career, which is also extremely interlaced with the fact that I'm a woman and the fact that I'm also a gay woman. And so with all of these things, I'd like to share what it's been like over the course of my career. So I'll give you a little bit of background here. So my pronouns are she, her, and mom, although I do wish I had a silent button sometimes for the mom one, but it's all good. And I am a Senior Director of Commercial Transformation. I work for Sanofi. Can you go to the next slide? So the one woman being me, my journey enabling diversity and inclusion in the corporate world. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of my background. I graduated Drexel University with a bachelor's in science degree in computer science and mathematics. I'm also currently been pursuing for quite some time a PhD specifically in biochemistry of controlled environment plant science. And this is what my career has looked like. So I started out as a developer, and as part of the Drexel University education, they have these phenomenal co-op programs. So I really had the opportunity to stay with the first co-op that I had throughout the rest of my college career. So I did what I tell my children not to do, which is worked full-time and went to school full-time. But that did give me an opportunity to really get a jump start within my career. So I was a developer while I was in school. And then very quickly after leaving school, I had a mentor who said to me that, developing jobs are really being outsourced. So if you want to have a career, you really need to move more towards the business analysis, project management track. And I was like, okay, sounds like a plan. And that's exactly what I saw happen over the course of the next 10 years of my career. More and more developing positions have been either outsourced or they've gone to shared services or they get vended out all of the time. So certainly I feel as though it was the right choice to change that development path, and it made sense. So I spent a number of years as a business analyst and a number of years as a project manager, and then as a program manager. And in the world of consulting, a lot of times those three roles, being business analyst, project manager, program manager, are all intertwined. And then, of course, today, as we continue to evolve, at least within Sanofi right now, and in different phases across different industries, as we're evolving more from what has been historically the standard waterfall methodologies, more to agile methodologies, the terms again are interchangeable with either Scrum Master or Product Owner. So that's what I did for 12 years of my career, was I consulted. And the core capabilities that I brought to the table were product owner, project manager, program leader, and really had an opportunity to follow the assignments. I brought my skill capability, my core capabilities of leading projects and programs, and then took assignments that I thought would be very exciting to be involved in. And what it gave me the opportunity to do was jump. So I've jumped into many different functions over those years within the life sciences and the healthcare industries, because I did a number of rotations within the health and insurance companies. I did a number of rotations within different pharmaceutical companies and within healthcare provider offices, as well as whatever else looked interesting at the time. But then in year 12 of my career, Sanofi recruited me. And they asked me if I would ironically come join them as a program leader within the commercial, which is sales and marketing division, which is where I had the majority of my experience, just because I always liked the functions in that domain for some reason the most when the assignments were presented to me over the years. And then quickly, when I joined Sanofi, they had an immediate need in a very large program that was in flight, which was implementing a new HR platform, which is called Workday, and they didn't have anybody to lead the program. And so they said, hey, I know this is in sales and marketing, but could you do this? And I said, sure, haven't played around in this technology before, why not? Meaning the HR functions. I'm happy to do it. And then because of that, as the company started to go through multiple organizational changes, and because I was working on an HR solution, my career just kind of flowed along with the back office, what we called corporate functions, business services functions. And that's where I ended up staying for the last 8 years of my career. And I came into Sanofi as a program manager, led a number of really interesting initiatives around the corporate functions services. And then I became a business partner for corporate functions. And then I decided that I really wanted to focus on the things that I loved. The things that I loved were around continuous improvement. That would be Lean, Six Sigma, anything that has to do with examining processes, optimizing processes, simplifying processes, and really all around that process user experience excellence. And so I had the opportunity to lead the initiative for corporate functions, where we literally changed the mindset of the entire team to be in that continuous improvement way of thinking. So the journey was to get everybody to look at the way that they were doing everything in their day-to-day through a different lens. The lens of, is this the right way to do it? Should we do it a different way? Does this make sense? Why am I doing it this way? And so we really incorporated that mindset into the basic operations of our team's day-to-day. And then from that role, I took on heading up the North America program and project management functions for corporate functions. And then recently I moved into the business. So I took a jump out of digital and technology and moved over to the business side of the house. And I have an opportunity now to lead program and project management, which is all related to commercial transformation, but on the business side. So it's really very cool. And what I have really found to be amazing with this team that I'm with now is that they had a very specific objective, which was to bring that digital program project management leadership, that product development mentality into the business teams, because there's always been a challenge between business and digital or IT or technology or whatever you want to call it, product development, program leadership. There's always been this challenge with working together, communicating, and, really having a non-myopic view and really being collaborative. And so this has been one of the huge initiatives that my team has been doing, is we've been bringing that expertise over into the business team and helping create that integration of the competencies to come up with a better way of working. Any questions? Great, next slide. So in the beginning, as an LGBTQIA+ person, 20 years ago when I started my career, marriage in the United States was not legal, so you couldn't get married. But of course, we wanted to have a family. So my wife and I, we had kids before we were legally able to get married. And so when I was looking for career opportunities, the most important thing was to ensure that whatever role I took would cover me and my kids. And this is a very interesting challenge, or luckily I can say was a very interesting challenge for the LGBTQIA+ community at that time, because a lot of employers would not offer domestic partner or same-sex health insurance coverage or any benefits coverage for that matter. So like, if we're expecting a child with your partner and you weren't the one carrying that child, you wouldn't be entitled to time off from your job. Or, you wouldn't be able to offer benefits to your spouse so that they could stay home and raise the children. And it sometimes went so far as to you couldn't claim them as the beneficiary on any of the benefits that your employer were providing, like life insurance or anything along those lines. So it was very challenging at first to be able to get aligned with employers that would provide that protection as well as that support. But even if you found a company that did offer the minimal of benefits and support, you still were not able to be out in the office. You still couldn't say, hey, my wife and I, or, oh yeah, this is a picture of my wife and kids, and put that on your desk. You couldn't share the fact that, that your family went to Disney World, and all the different things that typically people don't think about sharing. They just do share. And the LGBTQIA+ community couldn't share. So when we talk about things of how important it is for somebody to be their authentic selves in order to perform best in their workplace and be able to communicate with their coworkers, and also to be able to bring all different perspectives to the table for an organization, when somebody, of course, is hiding a significant piece of who they are and their lives, that completely prevents them from being able to function that way. And then, of course, it's also going to completely prevent them from, wanting to get better engaged or more involved in what's going on. It's exhausting to always have to be on guard of everything you say, and making sure that people don't find out things about you that could lead to either you getting fired or bullied or ostracized. And so, when did my expectations on what was okay to say in a work environment and to coworkers and share with my employer or my HR department, or even insist upon in terms of the basics, when you think about the basics of, what I should be able to expect from an employer to support me and my family, those expectations completely changed when I joined Deloitte during my consulting years. So I joined Deloitte, and all of a sudden, it was the first time in my career where they literally had an ERG, which is a resource, an employee resource group that was specific for LGBTQ employees of Deloitte. And this group was working very hard to not only get the right level of benefits that were available to every employee who were of the LGBTQ community, but also they were very instrumental in getting involved in the laws protecting the community as well. And it wasn't just within the United States, because they were a global employer. So they were able to take a lot of the initiatives that were going on internally with the employees that were running these groups and participating in these groups, and the leadership of the company, and really start making visible and demanding change around the world. And there's been a number of organizations that have been set up over the years to support these initiatives, bring organizations together, and help give better visibility and a voice behind these protections. Now, diversity and inclusion itself became a human resources priority and a recruitment tool for many corporations, all about the same time frame. So when I was in my 5th, 6th, 7th year of really being in the workforce is when I started to see a lot of this activity happening, where now all of a sudden these organizations were trying to make sure that potential candidates knew, and from a corporate from a social corporate responsibility, making sure that potential consumers knew that diversity and inclusion was a huge initiative for them. And they were being good world citizens by making sure that their employees were protected and that they as corporations were being active in policies to protect people across the world. Next slide. So what does it mean to be an agent to change, and what did I do to make that happen? So when Sanofi came to me and said, hey, we want to offer you a role to join our company, the very, very first thing that I did was I went to the Human Rights Campaign's website and looked up in their Corporate Equality Index how Sanofi was rated. And they were rated as a 45. So I went back to my recruiter and said, there's no way I can accept this role because, you know, you're 45 out of 100 on HRC. And she said to me, who's HRC? And so I started asking her some additional questions about what the benefits were that they offered and what it meant for me to be, you know, a gay woman working at Sanofi, and, you know, what did it mean in terms of Sanofi's theology, in terms of supporting me as a person and supporting my family. And it really came out that they had a lot of practices and policies in place that hit my minimum requirement to join a company. But more importantly, they had a desire to want to evaluate, number one, why they were rated so badly by HRC, but what they needed to do to turn that around. So I joined Sanofi, and the very first thing that I did was I helped establish an ERG, which became called Pride Connect at that time. It has since now been changed to Pride Plus, which focused on ensuring that we have the policies and procedures aligned to the HRC's Corporate Equality Index, so that Sanofi could now be seen as an employer of choice for this community. It took us 3 years, but it was very exciting because on year 3 is when we rated at 100%. And since then, Sanofi has consistently rated at 100% and continues to be rated as one of the best places for LGBTQIA+ people to work. And they followed up the work that we did, just as a side note, to also then be able to ensure that they're rated as the best places to work for women. So they took a lot of the work that we were able to accomplish for the LGBTQIA+ community and applied all of that so that they have now ensured that all the right policies and procedures, and procedures are in play to protect all of our DE&I community, no matter if, you know, no matter which community or multiple communities you align with. Next slide. So today's challenges. I'm not going to go too much in depth into this slide, just at a very high level. There's been a huge attack in the last couple of years, specifically targeting the LGBTQIA+ community. And it's a very purposeful and has been planned for many, many years based on some changes that we've seen over the last, 7 or so years in politics. So some of the states right now have put laws onto their books, their laws as of today, and other states have additional laws that are in the process of being evaluated and are going to be evaluated, which specifically target our trans youth. And one of the reasons why it's so scary is because, well, aside from the fact that this is just the beginning, if they succeed here, they will continue to try to, dismantle the rights that we have fought so hard over the last 50 years to gain. But this is also attacking the most vulnerable of our community, our children. As it is right now, trans youth have one of the highest suicide rates amongst children today. And what these laws basically are doing is telling these children that they're not worth living. And so there's a lot of efforts that are happening to try to get these laws off the books, the ones that have been put on already, and prevent other laws from going forward. It is more important than ever that we understand what's going on in our community. Can you go to the next slide? Because, the LGBTQIA plus people, we are sometimes ourselves, right? We are your family members. We are your coworkers. We are your employees. We're your managers, right? We're all around you. And when these kinds of attacks are being made against your friends, your family, the hope is that we all band together, especially when we're focused on diversity and inclusion for all communities, and we work together to dismantle the prejudice and the hateful rhetoric that's happening. So what can you do as a DE&I advocate? Know what's happening, just be informed. Just understand what's happening, know the facts, and leverage the collective power of our corporations and our employers. I mean, take a look at what I did. I was able to ensure that every LGBTQIA plus employee at Sanofi was protected, had medical health insurance to cover them and their families, to ensure that if something happens to them, that their spouse is absolutely recognized as their spouse, and that they are entitled to whatever a spouse is entitled to, and that their children are absolutely their children. And what this does is it creates an environment within an organization where every voice is heard and every voice matters. So, when we start talking about, well, what does this really mean to any type of product development, right? It's so important to be able to include, when we talk about certain things when we're building products, I mean, number one is we have to understand who our users are, right? And how do we do that? Well, we go out and we talk to them. We go out and we find out who they are. If you're extremely myopic in that investigation, you are not going to be able to bring in all the voices that need to be heard and contributing to any of the solutions that you're designing or creating. And I can't even tell you how many times there are solutions that are put out there and decisions that are made without these voices being heard or their perspectives being considered, and something, whether it be an image or a graphic or verbiage, is put out on a solution that is offensive to a particular community. And it creates from day one a horrific negative experience for the users. And even if it's only a small percentage of the users, then everybody's going to know what's going on no matter what. Because the negative is what resonates, not the positive. And we know this as we release solutions, as we release products. If there's something negative, everybody hears about it. Hardly anybody talks about the positive, right? So that's why it's so imperative to ensure not only that you're aware of what's going on, but that you're also including this perspective and this voice in everything that we do, from organizing our teams to developing, our products and delivering solutions. And just as an example, I think one of the best examples I've seen in my career has been in the travel industry, honestly, in terms of LGBTQIA plus inclusion, because they were absolutely the very first industry that came forward and said, we need to help this community with their travel needs. They're unique. And they started including in their apps specific criteria for the community to be able to find places that were safer for us to travel to. Resorts that were very inclusive. And they started putting together different trips and cruises that were targeted towards this community. And so I think that's a fabulous example of, what happens when you become inclusive. That's all I got.
Thank you, Sid. That was so insightful. I didn't realize that what are the challenges behind this journey. So thanks for shedding some light on that. I wanted to elaborate and talk a little bit more about the point that you brought up about what can we do to organize teams so that we can have inclusive teams. So, in a product, when we're hearing voices from different teams, what can product managers do to make sure that we are giving equal opportunity and voice to LGBTQIA community, or anyone who is probably a minority in the team? Sid, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I am. The very first thing that you must do is ensure that the team knows that you operate from a diversity and inclusion mindset. That's number one. And you have to set the rules, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable within the constructs of your team. And that you have this very inclusive mentality, and everybody's voice is just as important and just as valuable as everybody else's voice.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder for us sometimes. Some of the loudest voices get heard, but not every voice. So yeah, that's a good reminder. Also, taking that a little further, one of the, I've been in different organizations in my career. Some organizations have been supportive of, LGBTQIA, some organization not so much. So if I'm part of an organization that's not really not supportive, but doesn't have as many rights for LGBTQA, and I want to be that change agent, how can I drive that change?
So are you asking like within an organization?
Yeah, within an organization.
Well, the very first thing that I would recommend is first find out if they have a LGBTQIA plus or a Pride plus organization for employees. And if they don't, find out what it would take or if they're open to including one. If they do have one, get involved and find out what they're focused on. And, evaluate whether or not they have the right focus, and then maybe, you can make recommendations to the team as to what they should be focusing on. And how do you figure out what they should be focusing on? The HRC.com, their employer index, is the best guide that there is. and they're constantly evolving it. So every year there's additions and changes made on the expectation of what's considered basic human rights. So that would be another really good place to go look at and say, hey, is my company, first of all, how does my company rate on the index? That's number one, right? Number two, do they have an ERG that supports my community? And then number three, are they meeting the minimal expectations of HRC's index? And right there, if any of those things are not aligned, is where you can focus on trying to create change.
And then Cyde, as a follow-up to something that you said a few minutes ago, for the last question, you mentioned something about leaders of teams making it known that you're coming from a diversity and inclusion mindset. I'm wondering if you've seen anyone do that really well in your experience, either at Deloitte or somewhere else, who's been a leader or maybe a manager, because so many of us in the product management and product marketing space end up being some sort of a leader at the organization. So I'm just wondering if you have any examples you can point to of how people you've seen have done that really well, have made it known to their teams and to the broader organization without, and maybe it's just being very direct about it, but in other ways as well, like how can we as leaders make that mindset known and kind of be an evangelist of that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because there's so many components to that, right? I mean, number one, the organization itself really has to have the proper training and educational, modules for their employees, right? And some are more mature in terms of corporations than others, right? They really have to instill in their onboarding of employees and regularly as part of their employee yearly training requirements, diversity and inclusion. How, things you should never say, understanding that people are people, and you do have to give allowances for people who just haven't been exposed, right? And a lot of times these trainings really bridge a lot of the challenges that we have in the day-to-day, because it sets the stage for how should you interact with each other, what you shouldn't say, what's acceptable behavior and what's not. But aside from that, which I would hope at least at a minimum most organizations have some semblance of, if they have a mindset to DE&I at all, then I think the other thing that's really good for a leader is to have regular conversations with the team as a whole and share personal information. I know some people aren't comfortable with that, but that's how you break these barriers. You start sharing things about yourself. You start sharing things about your friends and your family, and you show also through your sharing that you're opening the floor for others to share as well. And that through getting to know people and building trust, they will start to be able to share more and more about themselves and who they are. And you can start learning those differences about them that make everybody, so incredibly wonderful.
Yeah, I think Cyde, as you're saying that, just, I feel that empathy really comes from that conversation within your team, and then it translates into across the organization and in products that we make. But yeah, I think it's really important to start having those conversations, as you pointed out. Hillary, I want to open up the question, open up to the audience for questions. I was wondering if there were any questions from audience.
Yeah, I actually had one from earlier, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Cyde, about if you can speak a little bit to, you mentioned the ERGs at least at Deloitte, and I'm not sure if also at other companies, either before or after as well, and your current ERG, but I feel like I'm seeing more and more ERGs pop up at organizations. We have a number at mine, and we have a Pride one, and we have Women in Tech, and people of color, and lots of different ERGs. And as someone who's involved with those, I'm wondering what advice you would give to ERGs, whether it's a Pride or an LGBTQIA plus focused ERG, or just any ERG out there that's whose mission is to kind of support a specific group of employees. If you have any advice about what's been most effective, or where you guys have really been able to push forward change and to support people at the organization. Just on a personal level, in my involvement with the Women in Tech group at my organization, we've sometimes struggled, especially while being remote now, to really think about what would be most useful and most most supportive and most effective for our members. I'm just wondering if you found anything to be particularly helpful there.
Definitely your goal and vision statement. You want to know what it is that you want to achieve. And what we used to do when I was leading the Pride Connect or the Pride Plus ERG is every quarter we would get together, we would revisit our vision and our goal statement and our agenda, and ensure that it was something that we were passionate about, that was something that we felt our members and our community would benefit from, and ensure that our leadership was aligned. Now, the other thing that I have to say is that I got very lucky when I came into Sanofi, because it was literally at the same point in time where they had an appetite to really be more corporate socially responsible. And so they had all of these initiatives that they had an interest in, and were trying to get off the ground, but needed, just the other people kind of to lead it forward, just get it through that thought process and into execution. Hence comes this program and project managers like, yeah, I could do that. So it just happened to also be that type of scenario. But what made it so incredibly successful was the support from leadership, from the people that were involved in the ERG. And it wasn't just LGBTQIA plus people, it was us and our allies. Although the word allies has taken a very strange turn of terms these days. So, and their leadership. So we had executive leadership supporting us and the initiatives and giving us money. So that's another fun thing, right? And we had corporate leadership that felt very strongly about the initiatives, were aligned and agreed with what we were trying to accomplish. But it all started from the vision and our goals and what we wanted to accomplish. And then being able to share that with leadership, and then them supporting us in making it happen.
And then what is like one big challenge ERGs face today?
I think there's, and Sanofi almost fell into this too. I think there's a misperception that, oh, everything's better, we don't need to do this anymore, hence we could dissolve the ERGs. Right? And, it's a false sense of security. And it goes back to what I was sharing in terms of all of these archaic laws that are trying to be passed and are being passed in certain states today, right? As a lesbian woman, I could tell you that like 6 or so years ago at this point, I thought we won. I thought we were done. We got a marriage, was sanctioned by the Supreme Court. We were done. We got past the hurdles of being considered valid and equal, right? And then all of a sudden you start to see one brick after another brick after another brick start to fall off this wall that you thought had been built. And luckily, we didn't dismantle all of our resource groups, and instead we invested in them. And now we can see how it's needed more so than it was before. So although it's wonderful to think, hey, we got top of the mountain, you have to make sure that you stay on top of that mountain, because it's so easy to fall back down. And that's the support that's needed now. Is
And
those bricks built back in the wall. Yeah.
and this is just adding on to what Cyde is saying, and as a friend, as a colleague of Cyde, I've seen a lot of these things actually play out pretty well at Sanofi since I joined. And thank you, Cyde, for being here. I think this is, as Prachi and I were talking at the start, I think this is the first time we're doing this kind of event at BPMA. And thank you everyone for being here. I think this is amazing to see so many people here and asking questions. So as a friend, as a colleague, Cyde and I, we both work at the same company, Sanofi, and I'm also like a DEI board of director here at BPMA. And thank you, Cyde, for being here. I'll give you my perspective, like the change I have seen at Sanofi since I started working with Cyde. So taking back 5 years ago, actually, so we started this innovation hub. Cyde, you probably remember that. And as innovation hub lead, newly assigned innovation hub lead, idea was actually, can we incorporate new ideas? Like, and Sanofi is huge. Just to give you perspective, we have 120,000 employees all over the world. The group we were part of, it has like 250 employees. So it was a company in itself. And Cyde and I were on the same team. So one thing I relied on for Cyde, actually, when we were starting out, she became my bouncing kind of board. Like she became my also a mentor on a lot of topics. So I was actually going to her because knowing the change she was trying to make at Sanofi, what she has done in the LGBTQ community, and I could see the change. And so she became my bouncing board, not just about like design thinking, agile, lean, and lean. You mentioned that, Cyde. So Cyde was the one who initiated this Lean Six Sigma, the change, which was, I believe, as a product manager, these are all a lot of skills that you need to build your product, whether it's lean, whether it's agile, whether it's like design thinking. She became my go-to person. And even today, we both have parted. Actually, she is now part of like business transformation. I'm part of R&D transformation. We still talk. And that she is actually one of those person who has really made a difference in everything we do at Sanofi. And so I think we are in such an amazing time, guys. Think about it. I think I was listening to the news this morning. We have a hearing going on for Ketanji Brown Jackson. It's an amazing time for us. So the change is already there. It's happening. And thank you, Cyde, again, for being here. And from my perspective, I think I see the change every day at Sanofi now. And so, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, and this might not be applicable to everybody, but I work for a 60-person company. I identify as gay, and there's no obvious ERG. And there's nobody who's obviously out. I'm just sort of waiting until June, until Pride, to see if I can find some fellow LGBTQ people. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions on what to do here?
It's a great question, and it's also a bit scary, because I would want to know, like almost do a litmus test to kind of understand what are the important people's perspectives, right? Because unfortunately, we still live in a world where we can be fired for being gay from our jobs, and there's really not that much we can do about it. I mean, it sucks. It really does. But it's a true reality of our, still uphill fight, if you will, that I would probably try to get, a feel, especially around HR, right? Have they ever thought about any DE&I initiatives, if they don't have any that you're aware of today? And, if they have, what would that look like, right? And then I would ask them if they have any policies around, their LGBTQ employees to start with. And if they say no, I would ask them if they have any interest or, plan for putting those in. And it definitely is a really significant recruiting tool these days to attract, different backgrounds from different types of people, because the data's in. We just are more successful as teams and as companies, big or small, and as large organizations, when we have a diverse team working together with all different perspectives and experiences to bring to the table, right?
Right.
I would start there. I would start with the HR person and really just try to understand what they're thinking, if they're thinking anything at all, if they're planning, if they have any plans, and if there's a presiding thought about our community.
Okay, thank you, Sid.
Good luck. Let me know how it turns out.
Yeah.
If there is one more question that just popped up from Bri. That's how you say your name.
That's correct. And sorry, there's all kinds of grammatical errors. I was running out of time to finish the question. But yeah, so essentially, I hope you guys can hear me okay. Essentially, what's going on is I mentioned to my boss, I work in the program office right now. And so I told him I was thinking, when we write, I don't think we're really writing for everyone. I think about my peers that are in the call center and I look at our language and I understand that they would not understand. So when we're writing policy, are we really being inclusive? That kind of ramped up and I had a conversation with our executive director. She gave me some homework. And my thing is, before I can even start to construct companies that might be able to serve us, I need to know where we're going. So I need to know, established objectives, maybe understand where we're falling, where we're doing great so that we can target something or good resources around, this is where you are, right?
Sure. Sid, do you want to take that question? I'll give you my perspective, and then Sid, maybe you can add on to that. So Bri, I'll give you my story. I hope that helps. Very much interested like yourself in DEI. And so when I was looking around, the first thing, well, I was already part of product management and doing some work. I was volunteering at BPMA. So when this position opened up, I think I found this to be as an opportunity to basically learn first myself what DEI is all about. So if you can actually attach or associate yourself with any volunteering kind of organization, do that. That's one idea. The second is I have some mentors myself. So I'm talking to a few people at Sanofi who are HR executives in DEI space. And I'll give you, so I was talking to him last week and he kind of opened up my mind. So the one thing he said, I think that might help everyone who is here. He told me that we say that, diversity and inclusion, it's all about being fitting in, bringing as many diverse perspectives as possible and then fitting those into the culture. So basically you talk to more people and let them incorporate their ideas into it and all that. What he said, that's wrong actually. So diversity and inclusion is all about adding to the culture. It's not like fitting into the culture, like you get in to add something new and open a perspective. So my 2 cents for you, Bray, I think if you want to do the assessment and you have passion for DEI, find an opportunity, be a part of BPMA, volunteer here. I think we're always looking for people like you, and then maybe talk to your DEI people in the organization if you have some, like especially within HR. They are your best conduits and best resources to start with. So, and Sid, please, if you can give your perspective from your experience, that would be great too.
And I think also you, Bree, you were asking about how could you possibly do an assessment, right? You don't feel as though what your company has been producing is hitting all of the target audience, correct?
That is all the way correct, yes.
So there's a couple of options. When you look at this from like a Lean and Six Sigma perspective, there's a tool that we use a lot called a voice of a customer. And we use that both at the beginning of wanting to create a new product, a new solution, so that we can identify what works and what doesn't work across all of our user community. Now, that's the question. How do you get all of your user community? And because we're a very large organization and hence we tend to have somewhat deeper pockets with some of our initiatives, we're able to hire agencies that are specifically hired to scout out our users across the different demographics so that we know that we're getting contribution from all communities. And then they'll tell us what works, what doesn't work. And I can't even tell you how many times when we get those results back, we hear from very specific communities, you know, that wording is offensive, or you know that imaging is offensive, or you're not saying anything that's going to interest my community at all, right? And we hear this all the time. So my first recommendation is if you have the capability from a budget perspective to partner with one of those companies that go out and do these assessments, I recommend that as a first step. If you don't, you can do it on your own, but the challenge is finding the target people across those different demographics, which isn't out of the question. It just means a little bit more legwork to be able to really identify the right people to get engaged in these voice of the customers. Does that help?
Yes, it does, because that's exactly where I am, like a make or buy decision right now. So that really clears up everything. You guys are great. Thanks.
Last question.
You're robotic again.
So is it Prachi that you were talking? So yeah, we're almost towards the end. Prachi, can you hear us? I think Prachi is having some connection problems. Any other questions from the audience? So yeah, I think we're almost towards the end. Hillary, you want to say something before we finish? And
Just thank you so much, Sid, for your time and sharing your story and your perspective on some of this. It's great to see someone who's been really in the weeds and really impressive. I think I mentioned this earlier in the chat. I don't know if you had an eye on it at all, but really impressive to see what you're able to do with Sanofi's score in such a short period of time. That was impressive. So
Thank you. It was very exciting to really have been part of that. Thank you.
yeah, and it looks like I think Prachi's audio is still out, right? Okay, all good. I was gonna say, looks like the last thing we have in here is we have a short survey, if folks wouldn't mind just filling it out as they leave. I think we can put it in, or we did put it in the chat. Prachi put it in the chat. So if you don't mind, it just helps us improve our events over time, and just make sure that we're tackling topics that people are interested in and can keep improving. So thank you all for joining. Thanks to Dear for joining to co-host with Prachi as well. And Sid, thank you again. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you,
good night.
everyone. And thank you, Sid.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.